Good Shabbos. I hope everybody has been enjoying this Hanukkah season, lighting candles. If you have, children or grandchildren that you light with, it changes everything. It's a totally different holiday, and I hope you've all had an opportunity to enjoy it with your children. Rabbi, don't talk about politics. It's too divisive. It's not what a rabbi should do. Oh my God, did you hear what the rabbi had to say about Israel and supporting Israel? That was great. It was so beautiful to see us all come together. I feel right now like I'm Mel Brooks in History of the World, right? When you die at the palace, you really die at the palace. Last week was Thanksgiving. We gathered around our tables in the most Jewish holiday that is not a Jewish holiday. It even has, for some of us, minhagim, right? Customs. It has traditional foods, very Jewish. It has a service where you walk around and not walk around, but you go around and say what you're thankful for. Did anybody else do that? Right? Something else for teenagers to say, can we get to the food, please? Right? When do we eat? Right? So it's a very Jewish holiday, a holiday of gratitude. And now we're in Hanukkah. Now we're actually in a very Jewish holiday. A lot of people talk about the miracle of Hanukkah as being, oh, we had this oil and it lasted for 8 days. Okay, no, we're not moths, right? We don't worship light. The Al Hanisim that we read in the middle of the Amidah, we talk about in the days of Matityahu and his children, in the days of the Maccabees. The miracle of Hanukkah was that the many fell into the hands of the few, the mighty into the arms of the weak. The miracle of Hanukkah was a military victory of the Maccabees. Right? Who were they? They were men and women, right? And if you think women weren't involved, just ask one of the Roman generals who had his head cut off. They were challenging and fighting against the status quo. They were rejecting Hellenism. They were rejecting a society that worships appearance. A society where pleasure and physical beauty are revered above spirituality. They were rejecting the idea that they weren't allowed to celebrate their Jewishness. They were rejecting the idea that they had to stay hidden. The Hellenists, the people who ruled at the time, didn't allow Jews to do mitzvot, didn't allow them to study Torah, didn't allow them to keep the holidays. In fact, the story of Hanukkah in some ways begins when the Greeks were telling the Jews to violate Jewish law, right? To worship idols, to eat non-kosher. And the Maccabees stood against that. Now, not everybody did. Some of the Jews at the time went along because they had this idea. There's an idea in the Torah, in Devarim, choose life, v'chai bahem, and you should live by them. Behold, I set before you on this day death and life, choose life, uvacharta v'chaim, and you should choose life. So many people, rather than facing the sword of the Greeks, capitulated and gave in to save themselves. But the people we revere are the people who stood up. They restored their sacred worship in a place of pagan destruction. So what was the miracle of Hanukkah? It was a political movement. It was a political revolt. Judaism is political. I hate to break it to you. What it is not is a political party. For everything that some rabbi says, we are Jews and so we must X, Y, or Z for some legislation, another rabbi can come around and say, well, actually I have 12 different sources that say we should do the exact opposite. So Judaism is political, but it's not a one-sided political agenda. And I bring this to you today because let's roll up our sleeves. I want to read for you a text thread between a mother and daughter that happened just a few days ago. I love you. I replied to her text with a heart emoji. A gun is in the school. Mom, I'm shaking. What? How do you know? Training, you mean? No. It is a real lockdown? Okay, just listen to your teacher. Where are you? In the class. Mommy, I'm here. Is your teacher there? Yes. What are they saying? Lights out? Lights are out under desks? We put desks in the front door. We're in the corner. Okay, just follow what your teacher says. Which class are you in? Name of the teacher. I'm calling the police. Are you there? And then nothing. The mom writes, for the 5 longest minutes of my life, I heard nothing. Mom, I'm here. They aren't helping. They haven't said anything. Okay, just relax. Stay quiet. I hear a lot of sirens. Just stay focused and listen to your teacher. Mommy, I want to go home. I know, but don't do anything until you're cleared by the police. We will come up to get you. Do you want us to come and get you? We're on our way to come get you. Our son called us as we rushed to town. We couldn't find Lauren at first, but eventually we saw her standing in the snow, crying, trembling. I read this week and I started crying. If it moves you, that's okay too. Something has to happen. Now, I'm not standing up here to tell you what should happen. I'm not standing up here to say this or that piece of legislation. The problem is bigger than that. There is no one piece of legislation that will solve this. But something must be done. We cannot throw up our hands and offer hopes and prayers anymore. Hopes and prayers need to be replaced by actions. So whatever you think about this issue, this was a text thread from Michigan this week, but it can be applied to Parkland, to Columbine, to so many different places. I was looking out last night at our U.S. wires, and I couldn't help but think about the kids who are their ages who have lost people this week. I am not a prophet. I'm not a politician. But that doesn't mean that we do nothing. So each one of us needs to look in our hearts and figure out how we can help. I'm not standing here to tell you what to do. I'm not telling you for whom you should vote or how you should feel about this issue. I hope, though, that whatever your views on guns, on the Second Amendment, that we can all agree that the loss of our children is too high a price to pay for what is going on. Now, this is a mental health issue. This is a much more complex conversation. I readily admit that and know that and acknowledge it. But this is what this week has been. And if we are Jews and of a community, And if we are to be an or lagoyim, a light unto the nation, we have to say something. We have to do something. So whether it's writing to your congressperson or senator or doing something, raising money, something has to be done. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said it best, as he often did. Morally speaking, there is no limit to the concern one must feel for the suffering of human beings. Indifference to evil is worse than evil itself. In a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. We are responsible. Lo alecha hamalacha ligmor. It is not upon you to finish this work. V'lo ata ben chorin lehivatel mimena. Neither are you free to ignore it, to desist from it. We are Maccabees. We stand up. We are political. Whatever your feelings, the time for thoughts and prayers has passed. It is now a time for action. Politics has a place in every community. And so do our political opponents. So whatever you think, we have to accept that not everybody agrees with us in this community, and that's great. Not only is it okay, but people who all agree in a community, you know what that's called? A cult. That's not a community, that's a cult. I'm under no illusions that everybody's going to love this sermon. It's fine. It's totally okay. Because pikuach nefesh doches Shabbat. Saving a life pushes off Shabbat, is more important than Shabbat. Right? I mentioned the Maccabees. Right? The Maccabees who risked their lives to challenge the status quo, and some people said, no, we're going to listen to the Torah that says, I call heaven upon you, that I have set before you life and death. Choose life. And that was their justification. What I didn't share was the end of that quote. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I've set before you life and death. Therefore choose life, that you and your offspring may live. Our children. This is who we're talking about. Our offspring are the ones being sacrificed. We're tired of binding our children to the altar. We're tired of the Akedah. It is time for it to end. It's time for action. Shabbat Shalom.